Last night took an unexpected turn. After Sophia, my usual escort, told me she'd be out of town for a couple of weeks, I decided it might be time to reach out to someone new. Our connection was always natural, a blend of shared jokes and good times that felt more like companionship than a mere transaction. But I was intrigued by the prospect of a fresh experience, a departure from our usual routine. After a few minutes of scrolling through profiles and debating whether this was the right move, I finally sent a message to someone else. It seemed simple enough. Try something new, see how it goes. But when the e-transfer email came through, I was taken aback. The email address was unmistakable, Sophia's. There it was, staring at me from the screen as if mocking my attempt at change. My heart skipped a beat, and a strange relief washed over me. Perhaps it was a sign that I wasn't ready to move on from her company after all. When Sophia arrived that evening, she greeted me with that familiar, playful smile, the one I had grown accustomed to seeing. She teased me with a wink, saying, "You should have just called me. You know I'm around." We both laughed, falling effortlessly into our usual rhythm. That smile, her easy demeanor, it was like no time had passed. And as the laughter faded, I realized how much I valued this connection, the comfort in knowing that she was someone I could always reach out to, someone who understood me in ways that felt oddly profound for an arrangement like ours. The evening flowed naturally, and yet, there was something different in the air, a quiet energy that lingered between us. We talked about our usual subjects, shared stories from our respective weeks, and laughed over shared memories of some of our past outings, the impromptu dinners, the surprise hockey game tickets she'd brought along once. As I sat across from her, I found myself scrutinizing the smallest details, the way her laughter filled the space between us, the soft glances that seemed to hold more meaning than usual. There was a feeling I couldn't shake, as if the nature of our relationship was evolving, transforming into something beyond the transactional boundaries we had initially set. Reflecting on it, I noticed that she hadn't charged me for some of our recent outings, the dinners, those hockey games we'd gone to together. When I'd finally asked her about it one night, she'd shrugged it off, giving me one of her familiar, easy smiles. "Those tickets are pricey enough," she'd said casually. "Besides, I like spending time with you." Her words hit differently, lingering in my mind long after she'd left. I found myself replaying that conversation, those simple words carrying a weight I hadn't expected. As the weeks passed and we continued to see each other, I realized that my feelings were changing. There was something significant about our connection. It went beyond companionship or a shared laugh. It was a feeling of genuine comfort, a sense of being truly seen and understood. Our interactions felt like they were deepening with each encounter, an unspoken understanding growing between us that seemed to transcend our initial arrangement. Each meeting left me with a subtle ache of anticipation, wondering when I'd see her next, looking forward to every text or message from her, hoping she felt something similar. 11 meetings since January. That's how many times we'd been together. And with each one, my feelings grew more complex. There was something meaningful in those encounters, something that felt real. I found myself contemplating the idea of exploring a different kind of relationship with her, a relationship that didn't have the lines drawn so distinctly. Yet the thought made me nervous, my mind racing with questions. Would she be open to it? Would she even want to redefine what we had? And, perhaps most frightening of all, could I be risking the very connection that had grown so naturally between us? I tried to picture how I might bring it up, a delicate conversation that would have to balance honesty with respect for what we already shared. Maybe over a quiet dinner, something familiar and intimate, where we could talk without distractions. I'd start by telling her how much I appreciated our time together and how each meeting felt more meaningful, more personal. I pictured myself saying, "Sophia, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. It feels different than before." I'd watch her reaction, look for that hint of a smile or glimmer in her eye that might tell me she felt the same way. And then, if the moment felt right, I'd venture a step further, laying my feelings on the line. "Have you thought about what might happen if we explored this a bit more? I mean, seeing if there's potential for something beyond just this?" It was a risk, certainly, but something inside me told me it was worth it. The connection we had was special, an unexpected gift that felt too rare to dismiss lightly. Thinking back to our previous encounters, I remembered how easy it was to be myself around her. There was no pressure, no need to impress. She seemed to see me for who I was, and she never judged. When we went out together, her laughter felt genuine, her company unforced. I realized that part of the reason I'd started seeing her was that with Sophia, there was an intimacy that I hadn't been able to find anywhere else, even with people I'd known for years. The thought of letting go of that, of risking that comfort for a mere chance at something more, felt daunting. But what was more daunting, I realized, was the thought of leaving things unsaid, of looking back with regret, wondering if we might have had something beautiful if I'd only been brave enough to ask. There was a profound contentment I felt when I was with her, a calmness that settled over me. It was a feeling I hadn't anticipated finding in such a situation, but it was undeniable. I wanted more of that feeling, more of her, and I didn't want to pretend otherwise anymore. In quiet moments, I caught myself imagining a future with her, a future not bound by arrangements or meetings that were scheduled in advance. I wondered if she ever thought the same, if maybe, like me, she also felt a sense of longing for something more permanent. A small voice in the back of my mind reminded me that such fantasies might only lead to disappointment, that our connection, as wonderful as it was, might not be built to last beyond the boundaries we had set. Yet that same voice also whispered that we'd already crossed those boundaries, that what we shared had evolved on its own, subtly and without our conscious efforts. The night of our next dinner arrived, and I felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. I knew that tonight might be the turning point, the moment that would either deepen our connection or force us to confront the reality of what we had. As I waited for her, my mind replayed the plan, the words I wanted to say. But when she walked in, looking as radiant as ever, every rehearsed line seemed to vanish. All I felt was a sense of gratitude for this moment, for the simple joy of her presence. We spent the evening as we usually did, laughing, sharing stories, talking about the small, inconsequential details of our lives. And yet, beneath it all, I could feel the tension, that sense of something unspoken lingering between us. At one point, as she laughed at a joke I'd made, I found myself gazing at her, feeling the weight of everything I hadn't yet said. When the evening drew to a close, I took a deep breath, summoning the courage to share my thoughts. I hadn't planned exactly how I'd begin, but I knew that if I didn't speak now, I might never get the chance. I started by telling her how much I valued our time together, how much it meant to me to have this connection, this companionship that felt so natural and genuine. Her eyes softened, and I thought I saw a glimmer of understanding there, a hint that she might feel the same way. I continued, letting my feelings spill out in a way that felt vulnerable but honest. I told her that I wanted to explore something more, that I hoped we could see if there was potential for something deeper, something lasting. Her response came not in words but in a smile, a look that conveyed an understanding that went beyond language. In that moment, I realized that whatever path we chose, we had already crossed an invisible line. We had moved beyond the boundaries of a mere arrangement into something more profound, something that had taken root in both of our hearts. And as we sat there in silence, our unspoken feelings filling the space between us, I knew that we were already on the edge of something new, something that, with time, might become the beginning of a beautiful journey together.